Ellis Jr., who I had the pleasure of having for 2 semesters at Florida A&M University in the College of Education. He told us, if you do not have classroom management, you do not have a classroom, okay? You wanna make sure that your classroom runs like a well-oiled machine. You wanna make sure that the students clearly know the desired outcomes from you, the educator, as well as the expectations that you will hopefully set prior to the first day of school and that you will model from day 1 to day 180, okay? So as a teacher, one of the things that I always have my students do is some type of bell ringer, entrance ticket, something just to get the day started and to kind of review what we have learned the previous day. So although we have not learned anything as far as classroom management is concerned from the previous day, I do want to take this time to do an entrance ticket. So take 1 minute and think about a phenomenal practitioner of education who had impeccable skills in classroom management, okay? What is the name of this educator and what techniques did he or she employ that led to a smooth learning environment? So down at the bottom of your screen, you have the chat button. I'm going to go back to that screen so that you can enable that feature. So you will go to the chat button and you will list that educator, and I'm gonna give you a minute. What is the name of this educator and what non-academic techniques did he or she employ so that there was a smooth, cohesive, well-oiled ran machine in your classroom? One second. Okay, and should be back. Okay, and feel free to chat. Again, who was a phenomenal practitioner? What was his or her name? And what skills did he or she employ that made the classroom effective for classroom management purposes? And you can put that in the chat feature down at the bottom of your screen. In about 35, 40 more seconds. And about 25 more seconds. Oh, 15. And about 10, 9. Okay, so I'm just gonna go through some of the responses that I see in the chat. I see Miss Smith, she was strict but loving. She taught us to type a minimum of 80 words per minute. She would drill and make us work hard, but keep us focused on the goal. So it sounded like this teacher had high expectations, which is a very, very important component of classroom management. My middle school band director always set clear instructional guidelines for us to follow. Again, clear expectations, okay? We always knew what was expected of us on any given day. Very stern and disciplined, but he also knew how to balance it out with his fun and loving side, okay? Again, that balance, okay? Making sure that you're not only having clear expectations, but you also model, okay, appropriate and loving behavior for your students. Mrs. Lewis Williams, she was very structured and organized. Mr. Lou Riley, he built a plexiglass whiteboard so he could be facing us as we worked out math problems. Doris Medlock, we always open class with a standard group poem, okay? So I see routines, okay? I see a teacher being able to watch and visibly take care of his or her students. I see very structured and organized, high expectations, clear guidelines, all of which are important components of classroom management that we will be talking about in 1 second. Okay. And so I'm glad that you all were able to respond to that question. And we've all had a teacher that was just impeccable, phenomenal with classroom management techniques. Okay? So as an ELA teacher, one of the standards that is just paramount, and for those of you who are not familiar with the English language arts standards, they build upon each other. And the standards is basically the prescribed curriculum by the state that tells me as a teacher what I'm supposed to teach. So as I'm maneuvering through my standards, the first standard that I cover with every one of my classes is citing text evidence. I always tell my kids, you're the lawyer in the courtroom and I'm the judge and the jury. And unless the lawyer or the attorney has effective evidence to back up their point, they will not win me over with their argument. So always, always, always come with facts, or what we like to call, quote unquote, receipts, okay, that backs up your argument. So here are some of my quote unquote receipts as to why classroom management is so vitally important. Teachers with no structured classroom management skills contributed to negative student outcomes, and you don't want that as an educator. That comes from albany.edu, okay? Classroom management surfaced as one of the critical aspects of effective teaching, not just teaching, but pay attention closely to that adjective, effective teaching. You want to be an effective or even an highly effective educator, okay? If you do not have classroom management, if you do not have set expectations, guidelines, and clear procedures, your classroom will not run as smoothly as it could, and you will waste a lot of time managing behavior as opposed to focusing on the academic content. And at the end of the day, your focus always wants to be on the academic content. Chaotic classroom environments are a large issue for teachers and can contribute to higher teacher stress and burnout rates. If you're running over here in the corner telling little Johnny to stop doing this and little Susie to stop doing that, and Juan is over here doing this and this one is over here doing that, that can cause burnout. You will tire out. You won't be as effective because, again, you're managing behavior rather than focusing and teaching and instructing and facilitating academic content. And that is what you're being paid for, to manage the academic content. That comes from APA, American Psychological Association.org. Early attention to classroom management at the beginning of the school year is a critical ingredient of a well-run classroom. If you focus on the classroom management at the beginning, you won't have to worry about some of those small, minor details, toward the latter parts of the year, toward Christmas and toward spring break and toward the end of the school year. If you have those things already set out for your students and they're clear, you will have a smooth day on day 1, smooth day on day 180. Okay, not to say that you won't run into any issues or problems. Let me put that out as a disclaimer, but it will be smooth. And finally, effective classroom management is key to student achievement. They correlate. If you have a teacher that has a well-run classroom and they have clear policies and procedures, then the kids are clear on what's expected of them and they will rise to that occasion. But if they are not clear on what you're trying to teach, what the instruction is, the standards, what they should be learning, then you're asking for a chaotic environment, which will lead to low student achievement. And at the end of the day, we want all of our students to not only achieve, but achieve at a higher height. Okay. Here is a quick video on classroom management. Some of the things that I found in this video, some of the things that are not only paramount in elementary schools, middle school, high school, and even post-secondary. Okay, so even though this video is, toward it's a first grade class, some of the things that the teacher employs with her students can be used effectively and successfully in any grade level. So here's a quick video and then we'll jump into the rest of our lesson. Yeah. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Linda Kasarjan. I teach first grade at PS 87 in Manhattan. My goal is to develop children who can think critically for themselves. I believe the key to successful teaching and learning is classroom management. Consistency, clear expectations, and routines are the greatest source of comfort for my children. I'm a stickler for routines. I believe that routines are the basis for any successful classroom. Routines are practiced, modeled, and role-played until they're down pat. As a result, students fall right into them and can get down to work without much delay. When the students take ownership of the routines, they are more likely to stick to them with fewer reminders. If I had to label my management style, I would say that it's one that embodies consistency, clear expectations, and love and respect for each child. Management styles do not have to look the same to be effective. For me, it's like an exciting mystery or puzzle to see what will work best with each new class.
And I want to thank Ms. Kasarjan for that video. Okay. So as we begin, first and foremost, understand that classroom management begins before the students even enter the classroom, okay? So one of the things that I do prior to meeting my students on the first day of school, we have a platform in our district website called Focus. And from Focus, I'm able to, when we're able to get class rosters, sometime during preschool week, I use that time to set up my class seating chart, okay? I make that seating chart prior to the first day of school because I want the kids to know that as the instructional leader for that specific content area, as the expert in the field in that classroom, when you come in, I want to make sure that you have the best learning experience possible. Okay, so I'm putting you in a seat in which I feel like you will be successful. And if not, then of course I'll make adjustments and I'm flexible in that way. But I make a seating chart prior to the first day of school so that kids know when they walk in the room, okay, there is a certain expectation of me. The teacher is going to make sure that I'm where I need to be. The teacher is going to make sure that I am in place so that I can receive the best instruction possible, okay? It also helps me as a student or as a teacher with classroom management, putting students in assigned seats because it helps me to learn their names faster, okay? Versus when I don't use seating charts and the kids kind of sit everywhere, it kind of takes me a minute, okay? Versus if they're in a set location, it helps me learn their names faster. And it just helps with overall classroom management. I'm able to see who is friends with who, I'm able to make adjustments if necessary. That way, I can cut out all things that are not academic and focus on the academics, okay? If possible, post classroom expectations outside the door so students can see them upon entering. I recently started doing this year. This year, my district rolled out a policy in which the students have to put their cellular devices in their backpacks and just get out their necessary materials and put their backpacks up against a selected wall by the teacher in their classroom. So I posted the 3 things that my kids need to do upon entering. The first thing they need to do is put their phone inside of their backpack. Second thing, take all of their materials out, put their backpack against the wall. Third thing, go to their assigned seat. I have right outside of my door so that when the students come in, they already know the expectation, whether they're new or whether they're, they just need a refresher. I have that there so that there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and I won't have to waste time with that once class has begun, okay? Because it's already there. Also, greet all students with warmth and enthusiasm. Now, the expectation also set forth by the administration at my school is that all teachers are standing by their door and greeting students, monitoring the hallways, monitoring the kids as they enter and exit the classroom. So I stand at my door and I greet my kids, good morning, good afternoon, how's your day, that type of thing. It lets the students know that they see you see me, and you care. You care about my day. You're speaking to me. You're acknowledging me, okay? You're letting me know that I'm important and that I'm a contributor to this educational environment, okay? Foster good relationships. That plays a part in classroom management. And practice classroom entrances until ingrained with your students, okay? Until they know it by memory, they can do it like the back of their hand. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can come in and your expectations are clearly set and everyone is moving forward the way that you want them to move forward in your classroom. Practice, practice, practice. Practice makes perfect, okay? So again, and all of these things begin before they even enter the classroom. Classroom management starts before the kids even walk into the room. So have those things set at the very beginning. Next, set clear expectations for the first day. If you look at the picture where my cursor is, I have my classroom expectations. I'm sorry I don't have a clearer photo, but I was using the photos that I already had on. Don't have access to my classroom right now, so I had to use what I could. But I have my expectations set forth here. I also have them in my course syllabus, which I provide on the first day of school. And I also have them on a Google slideshow that I go through with my kids on the first day of school. So they have 3 different times in which they interact with the classroom expectations. Now, pay attention to this word expectations, okay? That's the word that is modeled by the administration at our school, okay? The motto at Dunbar High School is achievement is the expectation. We don't hope to achieve, we expect to achieve. So expectations, these are things that I'm expecting you to do. Okay, I'm not giving you rules because rules are meant to be broken. So pay attention to that verbiage and model what you expect your kids to, show you as a student. I expect you to come in every single day and achieve. I expect you to come in and follow these classroom procedures, not rules, because I don't want you to break them, but I want you to rise to the occasion and meet the expectation and exceed the expectation. So clearly state your expectations the first day of school, okay? Do not waste any time doing this. After you introduce yourself, you have the kids introduce themselves, and you exchange pleasantries, clearly set your expectations, okay? Reiterate these expectations at the beginning of every class. You want to make it clear, and that was going back to some of the things that you all said about your former educators. There were clear expectations set at the beginning of every single class, so you knew what to do before you walked in the door. Have students take ownership of expectations with project, assignment, reenactment, etc. I have my kids, model good expectations and then the things that are not expectations so that they have a clear understanding and they take ownership of it themselves. So it's not just me talking and telling it and preaching it to them. They are also doing these things as well, okay? Redirect students using classroom expectations. If you see that a kid is not following the guidelines that you have set forth in the class, redirect them in a loving but firm manner, okay, back to the expectations that you have already set forth. If you do that, that will save you a lot of headache in the long run. Because if you don't redirect them and they constantly, do the same things and they don't follow your expectations, it'll just cause you headache in the long run. And then hold students accountable. Have students and parents sign a syllabus or contract that outlines the acknowledgement of the expectation, okay? So, and I'll get to that in a second, okay? So on my outline syllabus, and these are different snippets that I took of my syllabus, my administration has a copy of this. My students have a hard copy of this in their binder, and they also have a digital copy in a platform that we use on Google called Google Classroom. And I have them give this to their parents, and their parents read over it, and they have to sign it and return it back to me for their first grade of the year, okay? So that way, every person at every single level, from administration to me as the teacher, to the student, to the parent, there is a clear outline of what is expected of you, as well as the consequences if you do not meet these expectations, okay? So there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That way, that will save you a lot of headache in the long run, because the students will be quick to argue, especially on the secondary level. Well, you didn't tell that to us. You didn't explain that to us. How was I supposed to know? It was outlined in your syllabus with you and your parents on it, okay? Hold them accountable. Hold them to that word. Hold them to that expectation. And don't let up or apologize for it, because at the end of the day, you want your kids to be great, okay? Also, this is the first day presentation example. So I took 2 screenshots of my PowerPoint that I go through with my kids that outlines the expectations. One of them is keep your mouth clean, AKA refrain from using vulgar, obscene, or profane language, okay? And then I also have them take accountability with it, and I have them, do an exit ticket. What happens when we do not follow classroom expectations? Why are classroom expectations important? And for the most part, they always answer, in a very uniform manner. This isn't verbatim, but most of their answers coincide with something like, it helps us know what's expected of us. It helps the class run smoothly. It keeps the focus on the academic content, okay? So even though this might seem like a lot, having a syllabus or having these in your syllabus, going through these rules constantly, expectations constantly, and going through them with parents and having parents doing things with them, although it might seem like a lot, if you do the grunt work in the beginning, it'll save you a lot of headache in the end, okay? Next, after you get the kids acclimated to the different expectations that you have, you need to begin to develop a set schedule or routine. Just like the Ms. Kasarjan highlighted for us in the video, you want to make sure that you develop a set routine for your students, okay? Because they need to know what's expected of them each and every day. So I have my students participate in some type of bell ringer, some type of entrance ticket, some type of reading activity, something. And I have this right here as a screenshot of one of my daily directions that I post on my big Promethean board in my classroom. I post this there so that as soon as the kids walk past me and they speak, I speak, they see this on the Promethean board. They put their backpacks up against the wall, they get out their materials, and they start doing what I expect them to do. So that way, when the bell rings and I come out of the hallway, I just go straight to my podium, start the timer, and the kids begin to do whatever is asked of them to do. Today or that day, January 16th and January 17th, the kids were doing independent reading of a book that we've been reading called Gym Candy, okay? So they have that set routine, okay, of something posted on the Promethean board of what is expected of them. If you have that expectation and you follow through with it and you are a stickler for it and you redirect them if they are not following the expectation, okay, eventually they'll start to fall in line and you won't have those issues that you were having previously. Okay. Now, Classroom management during instruction. Again, have that bell ringer entrance ticket visible for students when they enter. This is a big one, and this is something that I learned during my internship. Have a set timer visible and use it religiously. Every single task, and stick with it. It holds students accountable. So if you give a student an assignment and you don't give them a clear deadline, a clear timeline as to when you want it turned in, they will take as long as you allow them to turn that assignment. Use a timer with everything. Walk around during the lecture or doing partner or group work. Proximity control, walk around, talk to your kids, make sure that they're engaged in what's going on. It helps manage behavior. Manage teacher talk, which I am not doing right now, and I do apologize, but have the students talk with each other. Manage the amount of time in which you talk. Let the students talk with each other. Let the students facilitate discussion. Let the students process what's going on, okay? And also it takes a lot of the burden off of you. You know, again, you want the kids to be independent thinkers outside of you. You want them to focus on what the content is without you having to give them the answer. Let the students, give them that challenge time, give them that struggle time, okay? Classroom management during instruction, okay? Give students opportunities to talk and process the content, okay? Classroom management, and I know that might seem like, oh, well, you know, why do you want the students to talk? Well, for one, because you want them to be independent thinkers. You don't want to have to give them the answer to everything. And if you are, then you need to rethink how you're structuring your lesson, okay? Give students opportunities to move around the classroom with content always a priority. When the kids are moving around and they're talking with each other about the content, that will alleviate some of those classroom management issues, because a lot of students, you know, I have students that have ADD and ADHD, and their parents tell me about that before, you know, prior to the first day of school. So when you give those students opportunities to move and to walk and to talk and to do those types of things, they are then less likely to cause disruption. Okay, less likely to cause disruption. Also, if you have those kids that just love to fall asleep, I call them my little sunflowers. Their heads just fall over on the desk. Okay, that wakes them up, moving them around. Okay, they are able to process the content. However, set clear expectations and guidelines before everything. So how you want them to talk, how you want them to process, how you want them to move. Okay, all of that has to do with classroom management. And a lot of times the kids will straight up tell you, they'll say, you know, I'm bored. Like, you're just talking and I'm bored, or we just have seat work, I'm bored. I want to get up and move. Like, we don't do anything fun. They moving around and talk, that's fun to them. Have an academic content focus, of course, but give them time to move and to talk and to stretch and to be kids. Remember, they're at school for 6-7 hours a day. So give them the opportunity to be kids. Redirect misbehavior of expectations in a firm, consistent manner. Provide and practice consequences for misbehavior, and do this immediately, okay? And again, during instruction, overplan each daily lesson and unit. You want to make sure that you have more than enough than not enough at all, okay? So overplan, have lessons, have backups, have opportunities for growth. You know, have different worksheets, have different activities to go along or coincide with whatever standard or whatever topic you're working on. That alleviates classroom management, because even if you have that timer, not all kids work at the same rate. So you might have kids that work faster, you might have kids that work slower, okay? You need to make sure that you have lessons in place, bell to bell instruction. So from the time they walk in, the tardy bell instruction, to the time they leave your classroom instruction, okay? Again, have backup activities in place, and again, use those timers, okay? So if you have an assignment and you want them to be done with that assignment in 15 minutes, get a big timer, use Google Timer, put it on your smart board, Promethean board, set it for 15 minutes, and at the end of the 15 minutes, you say, time is up. Now again, with this, you need to make sure that with your kids that have accommodations, like, you know, the IEPs and the 504s, you're following their accommodation plans. And for the most part, the kids that have the IEP and the 504 plans for formative assessment, regular in-class assignments, for the most part, they're able to get most of the assignments done, for me, in my experience, in the time frame that I allot them. They usually take a little bit more time with the assessment, and I give them double or extended time depending on, what their IEP or whatever says. Provide procedures for everything and practice procedures religiously until they are routine. So until the kids do them without you even having to say anything, practice them, practice them, practice them. Have students complete an exit ticket before leaving class. This also helps with that time management, classroom management, keeps the students engaged and holds them accountable. And model practice classroom cleanup and exit activities, exit procedures. So one of the things that that I'm a stickler for is the kids not getting up when the bell rings to leave class. So the bell rings, and what I tell my kids is the bell rings and that alerts me that it's time for you to go, but I am the one that dismisses you. And at the end of the day, when announcements come on and our principal or one of the assistant principals comes on and gives the afternoon announcements, they say, teachers, if you have completed instruction. So I tell my kids, you have to wait until I dismiss you. So they know to sit in their seat quietly until I say, students, have a good day, or push your chairs and have a good day. And then they push their chairs in and they leave in an orderly fashion. But I model that from day one so that day 180, they know to sit in their seats. And it's honestly, it's kind of comical because you might have a kid that might pop up, they might be new, or you might have a kid that they are absent or they might have forgotten for whatever length of time. They'll pop up and I won't even have to redirect them. The other kids will redirect them and say, hey, you need to sit down, you tripping, you're not gonna let us leave. And in my head, I laugh, but that lets me know as a teacher, what I'm doing is working, okay? I'm seeing the fruits of my labor pass, okay? Classroom management during instruction. Use engaging techniques to get students' attention, clap and response, a call and response. One of the things that I do is I use a popular song at the time. So a few years ago, I used this call and response from the song Bad and Bougie by the group Migos. So I would say raindrop, and the kids would say drop top in response. And that's how I would get their attention when I needed to get them to pay attention to what I was saying. Or I would do a clap and response, such as and then the kids would then respond back to me. Our school uses a hand signal called the tiger claw to get their attention. So use engaging techniques to get their attention. Have different structures in place so that class can run smoothly, talk structures, procedures on movement, handling materials, etc. When my kids are in groups, I have them turn in their assignments to one person at the table. And if you look at this picture, okay, the kids they're doing an assignment on the Chromebook. They're participating in a group activity review game. But I have the kids, when they're all sitting in tables or when they're sitting in rows like this, I have them pass the papers up. And the people that are at the front of the rows, I have those people get up and put the papers, if you see where my cursor is, put the papers in this basket right here, depending on whatever class they're in, okay? And the kids know to do that. So I model that for them the first few weeks and I push that in their brains. So by the time that we get to around October, November, they're putting the paper, like I don't have to tell them how I want them to put the papers in the box, because I don't want all the kids getting up at the same time. And they know if they're turning in something late or they were absent, they know that they don't turn the papers into me. They know that they automatically put the papers in the basket and I'll get them from there. So they won't be coming up to me while I'm trying to teach and giving me stuff, okay? They know to go there. Stay alert, be vigilant. Walk around your room, use timers for everything, and don't be afraid to think outside of the box as long as you remain content focused. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Okay, so thinking outside of the box with different activities. This all academic content goes hand in hand with classroom management. I teach ELA, English Language Arts. So one of the things that I did with my 9th graders, to the left, is a character sketch activity. And essentially it's basically a collage in which I gave the kids a random character from Romeo and Juliet. And I had the kids put together a character sketch or a collage of what that character's motivation is, things that they like, things that they, you know, are in tune with while they're reading about that character in the story. And I have them put that together. I learned early on that my kids love arts and crafts. They love to color. They love to make things. And they absolutely abhor with a strong passion seat work. So I have to think and be creative in how I want them to tackle the standards. One of my standards as an ELA teacher is character motivation, characterization. This deals with that right here, okay? The adjectives to describe that character, the individual character motivation. They're writing and telling me about Romeo in the story, and they're using text evidence to support their answer. They're finding different pictures that might relate or what they think Romeo would look like and how Juliet would look and how they interact lovingly in the story. Also, I have them do a chalk talk protocol. Okay, think, pair, share. I give them a certain question, I have them respond to it, and I have them process with each other the outcomes or the answers that they came up with. So why should the nurse be nervous in planning Romeo and Juliet's marriage? What consequences could the nurse suffer? Ultimately, she could die because their families are feuding and they hate each other. And if the nurse is the conduit connecting their parents together, they're connecting Romeo and Juliet together, then she could get in trouble. So I have the kids process that. I have them think outside the box, okay? Have the kids do things in which are different. They're, get them up and moving, get them processing, get them talking, get them analyzing different things, okay? Classroom management, it's academic focused, but at the same time, it takes that burden off of me like, oh, what am I gonna do if they misbehave? Well, if they're engaged in the content and they're liking what they're doing, you won't have to really worry about classroom management because they'll be so focused on doing the assignment and taking care of business, they won't be worried about misbehaving or their friends are acting up. They'll actually be engaged in what you're teaching them. So they do run in tandem. Okay, and this is something else, thinking outside of the box. My kids, again, they love coloring, they love creating. So I want them to be able to express that artsy side of them, again, English language arts. I want them to express that artistic side, but I also want them to remain content focused. So when I'm teaching argumentative or informative writing, this was when I was reviewing last year, I had the kids create foldables that differentiated between argumentative and informative writing for the Florida Standards Assessment. And they enjoyed it. Hey, thinking outside of the box, again, chalk talk. What was MLK's purpose in writing the I Have a Dream speech? And then I had here on the right, I had kids create freedom mind maps, okay? What does freedom look like to them? That was like an introductory lesson to our unit on the MLK I Have a Dream speech. What was his purpose in writing that? What is freedom? What does freedom look like to you? Who are different pioneers of freedom? Again, you see Rosa Parks here. They have the Statue of Liberty. They have independence, Abraham Lincoln, all of which is connected in some way, shape, or form to the lesson in which I'm going to be getting into. But I'm just doing it in an artistic way that gets them up and moving and talking and processing and coloring and doing all the things they like to do so that I won't have to worry about the classroom management. I won't have to worry about their behavior because they're doing something that they enjoy while still processing the academic content, okay? Redirecting off-task behavior, use proximity control, move around the room, stay close to those kids. When you're teaching and you notice kids are acting up, give them nonverbal cues. I love to give a stern look. I love to mean mug my kids when they're doing something that I disapprove of. And they know that by the look on my face. Have off-task students answer a question. Hey, little Johnny, hey, can you answer such and such for me? A lot of times they're not paying attention. They'll, kind of give me a look or say no or whatever, okay? That lets me know that you are not paying attention and that I see you and that I need you to stop. And then of course I'll move toward them while I'm talking, while I'm lecturing, and I'll, stand in that area of my classroom while I'm teaching. Move around. Change seating charts frequently, yet with a purpose, okay? You have the seating chart at the beginning of the school year, but the seating chart that you have at the beginning of the school year should not be the seating chart that you end with. You need to change it up. I typically change mine up once, twice a quarter, okay, or 9 weeks. And doing this helps minimize the talking because they get to know each other and then they start to become buddy friends and then they're not paying attention. Oh, it's time to change our seats, okay? Praise positive behavior. When I say praise positive behavior, a lot of times you don't always have to go for the negative off-task behavior. You don't always have to say, hey, little Johnny, I need you to stop. You can say, Susie is doing an awesome job on this. I'm so proud of you, Susie. You're doing great, fantastic. Or something that I've recently started doing, I have a little stamp. Even though I have 9th and 11th graders, I have a little stamp. And while they're working on an assignment, the kids that are on task, I'll come around to their paper and I'll give them a stamp on their paper. And then the other kids will be like, oh, well, I wanted a stamp. Well, if you want a stamp, I need you to do what you need to do. Okay. Reward positive behavior with incentives and consequences for off-task behavior. Alter misbehavior with positive talk. Use the 3-strike rule when handling misbehavior. And here are the 3 strikes. Conference with the student one-on-one. Do not do it in front of other students. Take the kid outside of the room, talk to them one-on-one, okay? Because if you give the kids an audience, they will make a show. Contact the parent or guardian when necessary. Contact a coach or club sponsor when necessary. A lot of times you won't have to contact the parent. If the kid is playing a sport at the school, you can go to the coach and they will, hate those consequences a lot worse than they will you calling their parent, okay? Take away individuals and only write referrals when necessary. However, remain fair, firm, consistent, and document everything. The second that kid acts up, when you get a moment, write it down, keep a log. So that way, when you go to conferences and you have to, you might have to write a referral, you're able to go back to those things that you previously have, jotted down, and you're able to have a full document about everything that this kid has done, okay? And set clear expectations throughout. This right here, again, my expectations are up here. And then I have my expectations for the kids walking in. This cup, I know you might ask why is a cup at the middle of this table. This is a talk structure that I have with my kids. So when the cup is open like this, like when the cup is open, like you can pour something in it, that means that the kids are able to talk. Your mouths are able to be open. However, when we flip the cup over to the bottom of the cup, that means that mouths are shut and you're paying attention. I used this for a little bit. It didn't work as great as I wished it would have worked, but I'm willing to try it again. And then again, here are my expectations on one of my whiteboards for the district formative. So I can just say, here are the directions and the expectations in which I need you to follow. You can clearly look and see them outlined here. This is what I expect you to do, okay? Here are some takeaways, okay? Set clear expectations from day one and stick to them. Classroom management plays a huge factor in student achievement. They work simultaneously. If you do not have a well-run classroom, you will not have the highest level of student achievement that you could possibly have. Establish routines. Get the kids acclimated to them. Hold students accountable for expectations. Monitor class during instruction. Stay away from just seat work. Come up with activities that will get the kids up and moving. Think outside of the box. Praise positive behavior. Redirect the negative behavior. Deal with off-task behavior in a firm, swift, and discreet manner. Set clear expectations. Clear consequences for negative behavior. Remain fair, firm, and consistent throughout your entire process of teaching. Always, 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 always. And there we go. And I am finished.
Thank you so much, Vance, for that excellent presentation. So we're going to open it up now to students. Either you can chat or unmute yourself to ask your questions.
So for your first year of teaching, how was your classroom management style your first year?
a work in progress, to say the least. I graduated in December of 2017. Teaching, I graduated December 16th, 2017, and my first day of teaching was January 11th, 2018. So I was thrown straight in, like as soon as I graduated. The kids had about 5 different substitute teachers before I took over as their teacher. So my first year, I really had to hone in on my classroom management techniques. Um, I really had to develop them quickly, and I had to stick to them. And that was very, very important. And I had to have clear, consistent, oh gosh, I can't think of the word. And I had to have clear, consistent consequences when students didn't follow those expectations. So if they did one thing, okay, here's your warning. Second thing, okay, here's your warning, and I'm gonna call your parent, guardian, whoever. Third time, okay, now I'm gonna have to write you up on a disciplinary referral, okay? So I really had to be a stickler for those expectations, and I had to stick to them. And eventually, if you stick to the expectations, the kids will begin to kind of follow suit. Okay, especially when their grade is involved, they'll be like, well, you know, okay, I gotta make sure my grades are on point. If they're not there for the instruction, they're not paying attention, their grades will, of course, begin to dwindle when you begin to assess them, formative or summative. So you need to make sure that you have set expectations and you follow through with them. Now, this is not to say that I also meant to put this as a disclaimer. This is not to say that you will not have issues, because you will. Okay, you will at some point, even the best educators run into issues. Some of the people that you all listed in the chat earlier, they had issues. However, it's working through those and having clear, consistent expectations, clear and consistent consequences for breaking those expectations, and holding your kids to them, holding them accountable. Those things that definitely helped my first year. And then praising the kids that, you know, followed suit. And eventually, toward the end of the school year, the kids began to, you know, come around. But it was a struggle. And I'm gonna be honest, it was a struggle, but I was able to make it
Thank you for sharing. I have another question.
through. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think you have a question in the chat. You can answer that
Is
first.
there any way we can have access to this PowerPoint? So yes, I will share this PowerPoint with Ms. Bryant, and then she can disseminate it to you all so that you all can have this in your
Ms.
arsenal.
Bryant also recorded this, so we will have that for you all as well. Ms. Bryant, we could just put it in the COE CEC shell. That'd be.
Oh yes, and can you please send this to me as well? That would be just fantastic.
Okay, so for classroom management, if you set a set of expectations or rules and it's not working, would it be good to create new ones or be persistent and consistent with the ones that you've already set? Which one would be better?
As an educator, one of the things, and I know they drilled this with us when I was in the College of Education, being a reflective practitioner. So not only with classroom management, but lessons, sometimes they're gonna flop, they're not always gonna work, or it might take a little bit, or it might take a while for you to see the fruits of your labor, or to see what you had expected to see when you were first planning. I would say go back to the drawing board, be flexible, hold your students to those expectations. But if you see that it's just not working, you keep trying and you're persistent and you're consistent and they're still not working, I would say be flexible. You might want to tweak them a little bit, but I wouldn't just change them. Because if you just change them, you throw them off. The kids, like, they'll have a lopsided or like a misconstrued view, and they won't completely understand where you're going or where you want them to go. I would say, again, have your expectations. If they're not working, maybe tweak them, be flexible, but don't just completely erase them and come up with a new setup. Because eventually, if you stick to them, 9 times out of 10, they'll come around. It just might take a while.
Thank you.
I have a question. So for future interns and interns, what advice would you give them coming into a classroom that already has their classroom management, their behavior management already in place, and coming into a classroom and trying to in place your own classroom management and your own routines and things of that matter in a classroom that's already developed and has a structure and a routine? What advice could you give to interns going into that situation?
Okay. Advice I would give interns going into that situation is to first sit down with your cooperating teacher at your internship site and come up with a plan that not only makes the cooperating teacher happy, but you as the college intern happy. You need to find a happy medium. So it essentially is co-teaching in a sense. After you come to a happy medium, you want to make sure that you're still implementing the strategies, the classroom expectations that that teacher has managed, that teacher has come up with, and you want to, whatever you have come up with that happy medium, slowly also integrate those into your routine as well. Now, you can't just have their expectations laid out, that teacher's expectations laid out, and then you come in and you drop all of yours in at once, because that's a lot for kids to handle. So you want to slowly acclimate the kids to yours as well. So you're not ignoring what the previous teacher has, but you're just slowly integrating it as an additional component, if that makes sense. Make sure that you meet with that teacher and that you have a clear understanding that this teacher has these expectations. You also have your own, and you want to integrate. You don't want to eradicate, but you want to integrate those two things together and find what works for you. Find what balances you. Find what is good for you, because during the time that your cooperating teacher is letting you teach, partially you take ownership of that classroom, but you don't want to eradicate what that teacher has already put in place, because at the end of the day, that is still that classroom. So you want to be respectful. So continue to use what that teacher has already put in place, to slowly integrate what you all have come up with the happy medium for that particular classroom setting.
Thank you so much.
So with your current classroom before the COVID-19, did you find it difficult or overwhelming working with students that did have a 504 plan or IEP plan?
Yes and no. So one of the things that you really want to make sure you do, and this also helps with classroom management, get to know your kids. And when I say that, not only get to know them as people, of course, like get to know their name, their interests, their hobbies, what they like to do, their home life, their favorite subject, of course, all the basics. But make sure that you have some type of access prior to the first day of school to their IEP, their 504, their accommodations, first and foremost. So that way you can eradicate any potential problems or anything that might become a challenge for you in the classroom, okay? Not all students are gonna have 504s. Not all students are going to have IEPs, but a lot of them do. And this is my 3rd year. Each year, those numbers increase. And you wanna make sure that you meet the needs of those students. So read up on their 504s, read up on their accommodations, read up on their IEPs, get to know them so that you can know how to best serve those kids. I didn't find it completely difficult. I'm not going to say that there was never a challenge, because there were challenges. Every day is something new, something out of the box, something random, but you learn how to navigate it with grace, compassion, flexibility. A lot of that was by me having compassion, by me simply getting to know them, reading up on their IEPs, reading and finding out their prior test scores, finding out things that they like to do. So of course it had its challenges, like different behavioral challenges, different academic challenges. But once I acclimated myself at the beginning of the school year to their different accommodations, and I made sure that I used their accommodations to guide how I instructed my class, it became a lot easier. And I stayed consistent with it, and I made sure that the kids were aware that their accommodations were being put in place. And that also put them at ease to know that they have education that cares about them in that way.
Okay, if there are no other questions at this time, I'd like to open it to Dean Watson to give closing remarks, and then I'll announce who our speaker will be for tomorrow.
Well, thank you, Vance. I tell you, you are so beyond your years. You speak like a teacher that has been teaching for 20 years. It was so refreshing to hear your thoughts and see your presentation. And you have a 12-year-old who is listening in.
Aww.
And she gave her point of view from a student perspective because she's in middle school. You also have Nubian. Nubian was listening in too, learning about what it's like. So just hearing her feedback and her nodding her head, and she really liked your character charts and how you do that, just affirms. If a 12-year-old approves it, then sure, you are doing what's best. But your professionalism and the way that you articulated all of your thoughts related to classroom management were perfection. I tell you, you did a mini class, like a whole semester class in this 1 hour segment. And I thank Licia and Bailey, and we also had Naomi who was on, and Janelle for being involved on this Zoom chat. And I also thank our faculty members because they are here, Dr. Roberts, Ms. Shelton, Mr. Moyce, and of course, you know, our wonderful Dr. Shakir and our wonderful Ms. Bryant who helped put this together. So for you to give up your time, that just deserves professional development points, kudos, and everything else. I would say that I know you're going into your master's program. Florida Gulf Coast is a great school. You would be an outstanding mentor teacher, cooperating teacher. So when the schools request to send a first or an intern to your classroom, you would be an outstanding mentor to them. And you are exactly the level of professional that we know that FAMU puts out across our state and across the nation. So you are an excellent representative of our program, and I just want to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dean Watson. Again, thank you very much, Vance. And as we noted earlier, Ms. Bryant did record this presentation as well as the one yesterday. So I'm sure at your school you have to do professional development. So maybe you could let this count towards that. And for tomorrow, we're going to have Latasha Jones. She's a 2017 alumna, excuse me. She is going to talk about surviving your first year teaching. We have a lot of students who are interning this semester, so all of this will work very synchronously in terms of the information that they will need. And so, as I said before, Ms. Bryant will make sure to post this so that you'll have access to it and that their students will have access as well. And we look forward to our students. And Vance, if you want to join us tomorrow, I know you were with us yesterday, feel free to join us tomorrow at 3. And if there are no other comments or questions or concerns, we'll end here. And I'll see you all tomorrow.
I'm going to give Dr. Ellis a shout out for you, Vance, because
right.
you would make his day if he knew that you gave him an acknowledgement.
Thank you.
Thank you again.